We're back to the Neil Haley Show on the Total Celebrity segment, and I'm excited to welcome the program Deana Martin, celebrity. And you have a father who was such a tremendous legacy. Deana, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. And yes, Dean Martin was unbelievable.
Oh, yes. So tell me the story how you wanted to be an entertainer because of your father. Was that the reasoning for wanting to be a singer and entertainer? Is what your father did?
I don't know if it was because of him or if it's just in me. I was born this way. I just always wanted to sing and dance and entertain. I have to tell you, all the Martins were kind of hams. But there's just something about it just gives me such pleasure, and I really and truly think it was something I'm meant to do. I'm just the happiest when I'm singing and dancing and entertaining people.
Did Dean want you to be an entertainer, or was it more he was wanting what was best for you and seeing if it was something you like and stuff?
Well, he wanted all of us to do whatever it was that we wanted, but I was very privileged in the fact that I was able to have ballet lessons and tap lessons and piano lessons and, get outside and play and do that. So we were encouraged to do whatever it is that we wanted to do. And it's just that I took so quickly to singing and dancing and acting that's what I wanted to do. It's not that he wanted to push us in any direction. My dad, he just wanted us to be happy and be good kids. and he raised 7 beautiful, smart, nice kids.
Wow, 7 kids. I have 5 of my own, so the house must have been really crazy, wasn't it?
Oh, it was crazy. Imagine each one of us having a friend over, and right there's 14 people in your house.
Oh, my gosh.
But everybody wanted to come to our house because it was fun. And when Dad was, if he wasn't working or playing golf, he was home or playing tennis or he was making us laugh.
That's amazing. Again, we're talking to Deana Martin on the Neil Haley Show, and we're talking about Dean Martin, the legendary singer. And, when he was traveling so much, how did you guys handle all that? Was that a challenge for you, especially when he was on the road a lot?
Well, I have to tell you, he wasn't traveling that much.
Really?
When we were little, he would do Las Vegas, a couple times a year, but we would go there with him because he always had, suites there, and we would go stay with him. But he was usually home making records and TV shows and movies. Excuse me. So he was home a lot. He didn't like to go out. He didn't like to go away. So if he would go to let's say to the Fontainebleau or to Chicago or do some a show, it was never for very long.
Really?
It's not like
oh wow,
no.
He had the flexibility because of his stature. He was able to do that. Then stay with his family and be a great family man. Wow, and not everyone thinks that, right? You think about entertainers, you don't think of a family man. So talking about your father's legacy in that way, it's great to hear the family man part of this.
Oh yeah, home every night for dinner.
Wow.
If he wasn't on the road, yeah. So, those were some of the rules that we had in our house, and we were all there. No one ever wanted to disappoint Dad. He was an Italian dad. He was funny. He said, "This is my house. These are my rules, and if you can't live by these rules, there's the door." I said, "But Dad, I'm only 9." He said, "No," and he'd laugh. He'd say, "Rules are rules. Be home on time for dinner." But going down to the Dean Martin show on Sundays when he was doing that fabulous TV show, and watching them was really remarkable for me. And I did the show, many times. But when he started doing the roast, the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, which were really fun, and I was there when he would do so many of those and watch them. I still watch them on TV. So that's what I'm going to be doing, next week, April 15th at the South Point Casino, the Deana Martin Celebrity Roast. And the man of the hour is Joe Mantegna from Criminal Minds.
That's awesome. So every year you do this, Deana.
More than every year, So I'm doing it. It all depends on everybody's schedules, who I'm going to roast, and then getting their friends to come. And we had to wait till April 15th for Joe because that's when I guess they're on break from Criminal Minds. but we have a great cast of roasters. It's going to be so much fun. And, Joe Mantegna is such a nice guy. It's going to be a little difficult to roast him because he's never done anything bad in his life.
Oh, geez, yeah. And
Huh?
Wow, so you do this how many times a year? It depends?
Well, I do. It all depends on what my schedule is, because I'm on the road 280 days out of the year.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So I'm out doing shows all over, and so it's just trying, maybe 4 times a year. It's difficult to, as I say, to get all the people together. Like everybody's coming in from all over for Joe. Joe Piscopo's coming in from New York.
Wow.
Lou Martini's coming in from New York. Mike Marino is coming in from New Jersey. I can't remember where Tommy Dreesen's coming from. Probably Chicago. But all of the people, so it's trying to get everybody's schedules together, and it's hard work. But once we're up there and we're roasting him, it's really beautifully done. It's well done. The South Point is a classy, beautiful hotel and casino, and so that's going to be wonderful. And that's where I play when I'm, sometimes when I'm in Vegas, I play the showroom there or the Smith Center. But they really know what they're doing at the South Point, so we're excited about that. And where are you?
I'm out of Pittsburgh, but we are syndicated in 120 plus stations and all over the world as well. So there's definitely a lot of fans of yours and also listening today or throughout the when it goes out to syndication, and also again about your father. So it's such a great thing to hear about and something. But roasting somebody, tell me that process of writing those jokes, especially when you like somebody and have to roast them.
Well, it's difficult, but if you have, and we, as I say, all of the Martins we were brought up with a great personality, and so it's the fun part. Excuse me, is taking something that he did. In fact, I might be singing "That's Life." Still haven't figured it out yet. If I'm going to be doing "That's Joe," that's what all the people say, and put words in. He played. Let me see. And then it gets to the part, and I can say, he played Dino and Castro and Rocco and Carmine.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So it's putting those things in there. And then, a cute line like Joe Mantegna is, he's so Italian, and he's wonderful. He has his beautiful wife, Arlene, and he has his 2 beautiful daughters, Mia and Gia, and, of course, 600 of his aunts and uncles and cousins living in his basement. So it's cute things that will just make people laugh that are so typical for Italians. And it's not just roasting Joe, because I have to roast every single one of the roasters who gets up.
Oh, wow. And many
introduce them,
right? And many of them knew your father well, or it's at some point.
Yes, yes, of course. And Tommy Dreesen, of course, who was Uncle Frank's opening act for years and years. So it's putting people down in a funny, not putting them down, just roasting them. So I don't want to give away a lot of the jokes.
No, you don't want to.
For one thing, Clifton Collins Jr., who's if you saw him, you'd know him. He's been in I can't tell you how many movies. But his grandfather was Pedro Gonzalez, and he was in Rio Bravo. So there's a connection there. Okay, so it's when you're setting up a roast, you have to go into the background of all of the people who are roasting, because it all kind of comes together, and that's what makes it funny. Again, that his grandfather was in Rio Bravo with my father. And then I can make a joke about the name Pedro Gonzalez. But it's like the Zsa Zsa Gabor, or so it's just being clever, and it's going to be fun, and heaven knows what people are going to say about me. They always say, funny things. But now, since you're in Pittsburgh, so I'm also going to be on April 20th in Staten Island.
Okay.
I'm going to do my show at Lorenzo's, and it's fabulous. So I'll have my quintet with sax and all of the great songs, I have wonderful musicians and, of course, a lot of humor, but all the great songs. And so it's a really fun show. If people are around Staten Island
exactly
on the 20th, they've got to come see this show. It's great.
And yeah, because everyone definitely travels at this time of year, especially when, makes a trip out to New York City and stuff. So that's great that you brought that up, Deana. And do you ever travel to Pittsburgh? Have you performed in Pittsburgh before?
Yes. Well, let me see. I have, and I think something's coming up. Pittsburgh, well, let me see. I do Philadelphia. I did the Philly Pops, but I'm trying to think of the theaters in Pittsburgh that I have been. But if people go to DeanaMartin.com and check out my website, they can click on tours and events.
Oh wow!
And so then they can see where I'm going to be, and it's a fun website, anyways. But I can't remember where I'm going to be.
So I'm sure you've performed in Pittsburgh in your career, for sure.
Yes, I have.
No, most definitely. And again, the cities, and what's so great about Pittsburgh, and Deana, I'm sure you know this, is the fact of the cultural of how they see music and how the cultural district in Pittsburgh is phenomenal, and the performances and everything. And that's one of the highlights of Pittsburgh in so many ways is that area. And
it's true. And it's, for me, it's this singing this music and entertaining. Originally I started as a country singer. Lee Hazelwood is the one who approached me. He had a couple songs. He had just had that huge hit with Nancy Sinatra, These Boots Are Made for Walking. And he called me because he had written a couple songs, Girl of the Month Club and, When He Remembers Me. So we went in and we recorded those. So they were country. So then I went to Nashville and did Music City, USA. I got into rock and roll after that.
Oh, wow.
I had a rock and roll group, and we were called the Chromium-Plated Streamline Baby, and we went all over and played the whiskey. But once my dad passed away, I was listening to his music just so I could hear his gorgeous voice. And I thought, my God, there's so many fabulous songs. And I thought, you know what, I should be singing a lot of these songs that he did. And it just, I just took to it. Because with the Great American Songbook and all those fabulous songs that
definitely.
I did, Cole Porter and Irving Berlin and, Rodgers and Hart, Sammy Kahn, who was a friend of ours, I just started singing this music. And, so I do symphony dates or a big band or I'll just be with my quintet or even a trio. But it's just something that's in me. I love the music. I love the tradition and carrying it on. And when people come to my show, I bring back memories for them that's, spectacular, and make new memories for them.
Definitely. And it's so great, Deana. And then you bring up stories about your father, and I can imagine the stories at the roast after the roast is over when you guys are eating, drinking.
Yes.
Oh, the stories about your father, stories about you when you were little. I mean, I could just imagine. And so that's, again,
it's going to be fun. And also getting to know all of the people, the night before when we have a cast party dinner. And so, where I can warn everybody, that it's all in good fun. So, and, so that's fun. And then the party after is just great. After you've finished a great show, it's always fun to hang out with the other actors and just, your experience, talk about your experiences and finding out about, their family. But Joe Mantegna, what a doll.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again,
he really is. He played my father in the Rat Pack movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Wow. And
he played Dean.
Yeah.
He played Dean Martin.
And everyone needs to go, for sure. And I was going to say, everyone needs to go to DeanaMartin.com right now, and that's where they can purchase tickets, right now.
Yes, and it's Dean, Deana. It's just Dean with an A, DeanaMartin.com.
Awesome. Well, continue your father's legacy. You're a delight, a New York Times bestselling author as well, as I'm reading right now. And you're welcome back again when you're promoting something else. So I definitely have your team's information. So reach out to me anytime you're traveling or want to tell about another one of your projects going on, because you're a delight, and I'd love to chat with you again.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And people should be buying my music, and they should read the book, Memories Are Made of This. Dean Martin Through His Daughter's Eyes. We're making it into a movie. So,
Wow.
tell them to get on that. You can get it from Amazon or from me, and I can autograph it. But go on to DeanaMartin.com and see all the music and all the good stuff that we have there. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for your radio show and the internet and everything that you do.
All right,
my dear.
All right, thanks, Deana. Take care.
All right, thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Neil Haley's show. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Neil Haley Show in the Total Celebrity segment. Oh, yes, and I'm excited to welcome the program. I think if we talk about a show that involves family life and something that was back in the days of television when television was really safe in certain ways, I'm excited to welcome the program Judy Norton, a.k.a. Maryellen on the Waltons. Judy, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So thinking about your fondest experiences being on the Waltons as a child actor. Tell us that.
Oh, it was really the cast that I got to work with. I mean, we really are like family to this day. So getting to know all of those people and building those lifelong relationships, I think, was the best part of it. And because there were a lot of us, particularly when we were young, the kids kind of, we hung together on set, off set, and, so there was it was fun. We were working hard, but, we just had a lot of fun. There was a lot of love on that set.
How much of a mentor were you to the other child actors? Judy?
Oh, none.
None, not really? Okay.
None. No. We kind of all grew up together, and amongst us, there really wasn't, growing up, really any kind of a leader. I mean, I think that we were more maybe mentored or impacted in each in our individual ways by, Will Geer, by Ellen Corby, by, Michael Learned, Ralph Waite, Richard Thomas, and then, some of the fabulous directors we worked with, and guest actors that came through. So it was kind of just a wonderful environment to be a part of.
Interesting. And would you say, how did you get a lot of help in transitioning as a child actor after the Waltons? Tell us what happened after that for our listeners out there. I know you were in a lot of different films and different things like that, but explain what happened after your career with the Waltons.
Well, I was already into my early 20s by then, so fortunately the show had allowed us to sort of make that transition during the course of the series. So when I came off the series, I went back to my roots. I had started in theater as a young child and had done repertory theater and musicals and stuff. So I kind of went back to that initially and started doing theater again across the country and musicals, and that sort of, and then picking up different, guest appearances on, TV, film things, and then spent 8 years behind the scenes with a theater company up in Canada.
Oh, wow.
Writing and directing, and that's when all of that sort of started, and just wanting to, branch out. And I feel like as things evolve in any business, you need to keep yourself current and relevant and reinventing yourself, whatever that takes. And, as an actor, especially as a female, in the business, the older you get, sometimes your role options diminish and things that are maybe satisfying as an actor. So I felt like, wanting to have more control and maybe, more options that satisfied my creative, need, that sort of drove me in these other directions to get behind the scenes as well. So now, besides acting, I still write, I direct, I sing, I have dabbled in producing. So I was able to combine all of those on this film that's about to release.
Interesting. When you talk about theater, what was your love of theater to jump on that after the Waltons? What would you say?
Well, I mean, part of it came from the fact that, coming off the Waltons for, 9 seasons that, I was so recognizable that in some cases with television, it sort of closed doors because, you're very typecast coming off of a series like that. And so I was getting, my agents, we were hearing, well, we love her, but she's not right. And, it's too, it's kind of like you need to go away for a while and let people forget that you did the Waltons. Not that that has happened ever since then, but, that door closed a bit at that time, but the door that it opened was in theater where they wanted, where, my name would draw in an audience.
Yes.
So I went, okay, well, let me find where the doors are open, and that's kind of how I have tried to go forward and focus more at any given time on not the doors that are closed, but the ones that I can open.
That's a great point. Again, we're talking to Judy Norton on the Neil Haley Show, and now we're going to discuss inclusion criteria. So you talked about how you like to be behind the scenes, behind the camera, directing, doing different things like this. Tell us about this project, inclusion criteria, in your character.
Well, this was one that I wrote, and Josh Hodgins, my director, he and I had sort of started talking a couple of years ago about this concept I had, and he said, I love that. If you write it and star in it, I will direct it. So I said, okay, I will do that. So I literally wrote the film with myself in mind to play the lead character, Tara, who is, she's an artist. She's kind of an introverted loner, and she comes across a potential crime and after that, weird, unexplained phenomena start happening around her, and she becomes very concerned, terrified that she is either losing her mind, literally going insane as her mother did, or that she is being stalked and manipulated and something really scary is happening. And she doesn't know which it is, and she doesn't know which scenario is more frightening. So it's a suspense thriller that with that whole sort of setting to take us through the story.
And what did you think about, wanting to write this? What gave you the mood to write a suspense movie?
It was based off of something, I can't explain what, or it'll give away the story.
Oh, yes.
But
okay.
it was, some information like an article I'd read, and that I found very disturbing. And the possibility of this scenario being real and happening was very concerning to me, and I thought it made a really interesting, raised an interesting, compelling question that I thought would be very thought-provoking for an audience and hopefully would initiate some conversation about this really disturbing potential scenario. And so that was sort of the kernel of it, and it developed from there.
Interesting. Very good. And again, it's in theaters again April 13th and also available on VOD after that. Isn't that correct, Judy?
Yes, we're releasing April 13th in limited theatrical release, and right around the same time for people who won't be able to catch it in theaters. If it's not initially coming to your area, it's available through outlets like Amazon and Best Buy and Walmart for the DVD and for the on-demand, and then we'll be rolling out further from there. So,
and the best place we can find information on all that, Judy, where can we go?
Well, my website, judynorton.com. I'll be keeping people updated. On social media, I am a little behind the time, but I am on Facebook, and you can look for me with my profile has a picture of me as Maryellen with my little straw hat, sort of iconic. And then my Twitter is the Judy Norton. And if you subscribe, follow on either of those, then I will be keeping everybody updated as new outlets come available for inclusion criteria.
All right. Well, fantastic, Judy. Thanks for calling, and thank you for that education, letting us know about the Waltons and different things that are going on. Especially, I'm sure your fans are always interested in hearing what you're doing, Judy, so that hopefully they all check out the film. So thanks again for calling.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye. You're listening to Neil Haley's Show, and we'll be back in just a moment. Bye-bye. We're back to the Neil Haley Show in the Total Celebrity segment, and this is a really interesting story because we sometimes do not understand how adults or children that have been adopted, how they're able to deal with certain things, especially when they get older and they know they've been adopted. So I'm excited to welcome to the program Lisa Joyner, host of TLC's Long Lost Family. Lisa, thanks for calling. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
You know, when you think about that, it's really a hard thing because, again, once you find out, hey, I'm adopted, there's a missing piece out there, right? And this is one reason why you're part of this. Tell us about that.
Well, there is. It's a very interesting sort of group. A lot of people that I talk to who are adopted, I'll say, when did you know you were adopted? What did you feel like? And they're like, oh, I always knew. I never really fit in. And it's kind of like, huh? But subconsciously, there is an abandonment issue. I mean, just from the get-go, you've been separated from a biological parent, and how you deal with it is different. And as adoptees, a lot of times we become super. We put up a great facade. We have a very steely, outward appearance, but inside, we're just like every other person who wants to be heard, who wants to be loved, and who wants to know their origin story. And for me, being an adoptee, that was part of it. It's just like I knew from a certain age on what my life was, but I didn't know the backstory.
You definitely didn't know the backstory, Lisa, and then that always gives that what if. It always gives that, hey, I'm missing something, as we talked about missing a piece of something. And so for our listeners out there that don't understand, know, Lisa was adopted. So this is why this project's such an important thing to you, isn't it, being part of this show?
It's a passion project. There's nothing else on the planet that would take me away from my family than this show. It is an absolute privilege, an honor to sit across from somebody and hold their hands and take them on this journey and be able to tell them we found the person that they've been looking for their entire life. I'm not going to say it out loud, but okay. It's amazing they pay me for this. It's really, really an honor.
Yes.
I can also say to them, listen, I know what you've been through. I get it. I get every emotion that you're going through. I know that you're scared. I know that you're fearful of abandonment. So it makes it an incredibly intimate show. And the crew that we have is so. You've never met a crew. I mean, there's just sort of chiseled photographers who just sort of, are sleeping behind the camera. No, these people are engaged. I mean, sometimes I hear the sound guy; he's crying. It's such a real show and full of great meaning and thought behind it. And sadly, we don't always have happy endings, but oftentimes we do.
Again, we're talking to Lisa Joyner, a host of TLC's Long Lost Family on the Neil Haley Show. And Lisa, so the stories, how do you find the people that you're go and try to find their long lost relative? How do you, especially their adoptees, how do you go through this process of choosing what person to choose to tell the story?
Well, first of all, it's a little bit, it's like casting. I mean, it's for any show there's casting. You have to sort of throw out the net and say, hey, we're looking for people, we're searching for a long-lost loved one. It is not only adoption, though. I have to tell you, we've done so many stories where, for example, a sister and brother have been looking for their sperm donor, for one.
Oh, wow.
We had a fascinating story about that. And they believed to have been from the same sperm donor. And so tracing that and going through the DNA to find them. Or, a mother who disappeared, just left, a 3 and a 4-year-old with their great-grandmother, and they never knew why. So it sort of covers all sort of aspects, and adoptions as well. But it's profoundly life-changing when we're able to give them some sort of closure, even if it's not the person that they wanted to find. We had one recently that he wanted to find out his racial background. He was struggling with his racial identity his whole life. On his birth certificate, it said he was Caucasian, and he clearly was not. He was clearly of mixed race. So being able to find the biological mother and find out his true ethnicity is, it's life-changing.
Now, Lisa, I'm asking a personal question, especially we've been going personal. Did you ever find out who your parents were? Did you ever go through this process?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I did it about 15 years ago, and I thought I would do it myself because I'm Joe Journalist. I can get this done. No.
Right.
So I hired somebody, and they found my biological father, and he said, oh, I didn't even know she existed. Oh, gosh, yeah, I want to meet her. And he lived, I live in Los Angeles. He lived in San Diego, so it wasn't that far away. And then the searcher who found my biological mother was very skeptical. She was just like, no, I don't, no, she's not, no, I don't know. And then finally she sort of broke her down and said, listen, if this is my daughter, what was her name at birth? And she said, Susan Michelle. And then my birth mother just started weeping, and she said, that's my baby. So I've been there in the middle of that. I've met them. I know the feelings that these adoptees have gone through, not knowing their origin story or their ethnicity, and I know what it's like to actually find that person. So it's super personal to me, but it's also something I really relate to.
Well, it definitely seems like something, and for you to tell those stories, and especially when you're with the cast of people who the story's going to happen, you say, hey, guess what? I went through the same thing. And so this is why it's such an important thing for you to be the host, because you've done this. You've been there, done this. You've dealt with the tear-jerking, now having another family again, and it's a challenge. Because what about the people who adopted the child? That's the other hard part of this, Lisa, is they chose to adopt, and they chose to make that person their son or daughter, and then they see that they're going to search to find out the truth in certain ways. Is that hard? Think about that, Lisa. I think that's really a challenge for the parents that are the adoptee parents to see this process happen.
It's absolutely challenging. And the wonderful part of that is that I identify with them as well because I chose adoption. I have an adopted daughter. And okay. I talk to them, and I ask them all the time. I say, can I talk to your mom and dad? Can I talk to them? Because I want to let them know that what they're feeling is natural and is okay, but what they need to know is it has nothing to do with them. This is about an internal need for the adoptee to find out how it all started, why, when, who, all those basics. And I can talk to the adoptive parents and say, listen, I know. I adopted a child. I am going through this as well.
All right. Well, Lisa, again, people tune in on Sundays, right, at 10 p.m. Eastern on TLC. Is that correct for the show?
Yes, and it's a great one. It's a really good show, and I hope that your viewers will tune in because I think they'll enjoy it.
All right, again, thanks again for calling, Lisa. Best of luck with your ventures. I appreciate you coming on the show, and really, really an amazing story. Thanks for calling.
Oh, my pleasure.
Take care. All right, bye-bye. You're listening to Neil Haley's Show, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Neil Haley Show on the Author's Corner segment, and I'm excited about this guest because, again, he is really a music genius in certain ways of the way he studied this and looked at this and has interviewed so many interesting people. So I'm excited to welcome to the program music biographer Jake Brown, author of Beyond the Beats. Jake, thanks for calling. How are you?
Oh, great, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Let's talk about your background. You're award-winning in certain ways. You've done. How did you get started in this, and what was your reasoning for wanting to do it?
Yeah, well, this is my 44th book in almost 19 years. Amazingly, I've been a musician all my life, and I just write kind of just luckily that kind of comes along with it. And I 20 years ago, a publicist asked me to write I was working at a label. And a publicist, like 21 in LA, Cleopatra Records, and a publicist asked me to write a copy of something, like for press copy, and they just made me their press person. And I kind of started meeting people that were looking for books, and I said, I'm not really wanting to kick it off with that, but I wrote a book on Suge Knight from Death Row Records, and that came out in 2001, and I then started kind of gravitating after some hip-hop years toward rock. Got lucky to co-write with Hart and Nancy Wilson and Lenny Kilmister before he passed. Joe Satriani's memoir we did a few years ago, Kenny Aronoff, which is how I came up with the idea for this book. And the impetus for Beyond the Beats was I also write anthologies like National Songwriter, Behind the Boards, which is record producers. And there's never been a kind of comprehensive, this is the first book of its kind, proudly I'm saying, to go in depth with these guys and sit them, down the reader, down behind the kit, really figure out who put the sticks in the drummer's hands. And like you mentioned, you got I mean, gosh, Lars Ulrich of Metallica, Joey Kramer of Aerosmith, Tommy Lee of Motley Crue, Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters, if I may just, Chad Smith of the Chili Peppers, Doug Cosmo Clifford of Creedence Clearwater. That blew me away. Tico Torres of Bon Jovi, Matt Sorum of Guns N' Roses, Jimmy Chamberlain of Smashing Pumpkins, Kenny I mentioned, Steve Perkins of Jane's Addiction, and Steve Smith of Journey. And the crazy thing is, you could take those 12 bands, and, I mean, think about who's still playing arenas and stadiums today, and who's really rotated more than any other bands through classic rock and modern rock. And, I mean, these guys have made beats that are just timelessly indelible, and there's something for everyone in this book. If no matter stylistically, if you're a hard rock, you got Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses. If you're classic rock, you got Creedence and Journey. You got alternative. You got Foo Fighters, Smashing Pumpkins, Jane's Addiction. So it really does hopefully cover enough interest for someone, if some millennial, they can stream along and they can watch on YouTube the beats that they're listening to, or how they were made, or how they're performed live. And then really the drummers, took us everywhere, man. I mean, these guys talked about, their childhoods, who influenced them, how they kind of grew up and made their way into the music business. And so it's a great educational slant, too, if you're an aspiring drummer.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's such a great point, Jake. And so did you get to interview all these people for this book?
Oh, yeah, firsthand. Yeah,
are you kidding me? Oh, my gosh. That's got to be, I mean, this is unreal. The amount of superstars you got
Joey Kramer was the fourth guy to sign on. Yeah, it is. Some of the drummers that signed on blew me away, too, because then it's a reflection of how much there was a hole in that part of the study of rock. I mean, these guys, think about it. They keep the band going, keep the audience going. They got to be these amazing acrobatic, athletic performers in their 50s like they were in their 20s. Imagine Lars Ulrich pulling one off with the same energy from 10-year-old kid who's seeing him now as he did 30 years ago, or Tommy Lee, or any of these guys. It's incredible what they do.
And were they all pretty helpful? Did they like this idea of what you did, Jake, especially to look at a drummer in this way? Because everyone forgets the drummer, even though the drummer is such an important part of a band.
Oh, it's critical. I think what they thought was important was that there really hadn't been a definitive series that took you through the whole journey of being a drummer and educated as much as entertained in that sense. Because, you get guys like Tico Torres that talk about Elvin Jones, legendary New York drummer that was his mentor. You get guys that talk about Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich. It's another interesting thing. The huge influence of jazz that you wouldn't normally think within swing and feel. You also get a sort of quasi-tribute to John Bonham in this book, because everybody salutes him in one form or another, and they're playing, and a lot of them in what they talk about, Oh, yeah, man. And Keith Moon, of course, another important guy. A lot of guys that have passed on that hopefully readers also get a little tip to maybe go check out their catalogs if they haven't heard The Who before, consciously. You know what I mean? Or whatever the band is if they're a young kid. But yeah, man, the crazy thing too, with guys like Joey Kramer, talks about moments of fear. He talks about never being really comfortable doing a drum solo until 75, and Steven Tyler kind of kicked him in the rear, get out there and do one at a Texas, stadium gig, and he's done them ever since. So Taylor Hawkins talks about being scared blankless, going out and play Wembley Stadium. So they really give you their honest, true kind of, beyond the confidence, beyond the projection of strength you think a drummer puts out. They really do talk about the human side of it, the pain that comes with playing. Tommy Lee talks about getting cortisone shots.
Oh, geez.
When you have to go in a roller coaster drum set at night. You know what I mean? And so it really.
Oh yeah. Just imagine Tommy, how crazy his events are, and then some of these other drummers, especially in the heavy metal bands at that time, and how much they had to put their heart and soul into this. So, Jake, tell us one person, not an example, but more what you're going to learn. You're going to learn specifically how they became a drummer, the study they had to deal with, the amount of practice they need to do, and also how they made it theatrical so that the performances would be unbelievable. Right? Am I on the right track of those things that you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. You want one example of that?
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. I'm just chuckling because there's so many. I think a really, really poignant example of something like that would be Kenny Aronoff, just because he, started out. I mean, he grew up in the Berkshires and studied under, some amazing classical trainers, and played the timpani and went to University of Indiana for their kind of jazz program. And He really, was fired off Mellencamp's first record before American Fool, and just went to the studio anyway and watched the session drummer, and then sort of made his bones with Hurt So Good and Jack and Diane. He talks about in the book, both his book that we co-wrote together, and then this one, coming in at the last minute there to save Jack and Diane with that famous Lynn drum, fill that you hear, that kind of reminiscent of In the Air Tonight. And I say him because he's a mirror of a lot of these guys' stories. Steve Smith talks about taking Don't Stop Believin' Home to work on at night, coming up with what's now those very famous, drum breakdowns and that throughout it. So it's just, he's a great example, but all of these guys are journeymen, and none of them got an easy path. I mean, Matt Sorum talks about sneaking out and going down and playing shows on the Sunset Strip and as a teenager, and then doing 4 and 5, sets a night, swapping out with other journeyman drummers on his way to Guns N' Roses. So, I mean, there's some really cool stories about the struggle. Tico Torres was a roofer by 14, and then he'd go play shows at night. So these guys are workaholics, they worked as hard as they did. You know what I mean?
So, Jake, it's basically what you're saying is you're giving a biography almost of their lives, a little bit of short little snippet, plus how they had to deal with it to get to make it, and also how much work it takes, and what their strength and their talent
and
is.
the inspiration behind all the beats they came up with.
Oh, yeah.
And not to cut you off. Sorry, I think.
Oh, that's awesome.
You get also the interactions with the bands in the studio. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of different things, Jake. So where can we purchase the book and learn more about you, Jake? Where's the best place we can go?
Oh, you can go to, I think for most, Amazon has got it, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, kind of brick and mortar retail. The ebook comes out in May, and also the audiobook through Blackstone Audio comes out on May 15th. The other thing I would encourage anyone who has the ability, at the time when they read this, put on the songs, man. Put on Spotify or whatever your chosen streaming medium, or and listen along while you read about like Walk This Way or any of these beats you love, Hurt So Good, or etc. Because they're really cool. And I really beg these guys to get into some detail with me. That at one point Joey Kramer said, "Hey Jake, man, enough about the songs, man."
Wow.
So we talked about 40 minutes about it. No, it was a good thing. I tortured him through 20, what about this one? But he then we talked for another 45 minutes about all these other great areas of his live playing and rocking.
That's fantastic.
And Joey Kramer could have told me to stop after 2 songs, and I would have, talked to him about whatever. But, he was gracious and went into, a lot of the hits. You got to figure for a guy like that, he's remembering back 45
Oh, it's crazy.
years.
It's
I'm
crazy.
About Mama.
So, Jake, how are you going to top this? How are you going to top this book now? What's your next project? Can you tell us?
Volume 2. And I'll tell you, Volume 2 has the drummers from, it's amazing, The Clash, Iron Maiden, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, Bad Company, Dream Theater, Carmine had pieces in it, Steve Gadd in it, MC5, Dino Danelli of the Rascals, John Lennon's drummer, Tower of Power, Leonard Skinner, Whitesnake. It just goes on to Pixies, Tacos.
Keep it up. Oh, my gosh. All right, Jake. Well, thanks for calling. Appreciate you coming on this show, and I can't wait to check out the book. Take care.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. All right, you're welcome. Bye-bye. You're listening to The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in...
The Neil Haley Show, the Total Celebrity segment, and I'm excited to welcome to the program Anne-Marie Cummings of Conversations in L.A. Anne-Marie, thanks for calling. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Again, it still seems like winter in Pittsburgh, so I'm sure you're not dealing with that in L.A. at all. And we're expecting snow again, and this is April, so
oh my God.
It's not the best. But hey, we just deal with excitement of just talking about different things. But let's just jump really quickly to why you wanted to become an actor. Tell us that story, especially when you started out in daytime. I want to hear that story, how you got into daytime work and stuff like that.
I started acting when I was about 6 years old. I was a kid, and I remember, I think my first inspiration was Meryl Streep. So Sophie's Choice, I think it was. But, I was so impressed with her. And here I am, 6, 7 years old, and I'm, watching Meryl Streep, and I was moved by the emotions. And just even at that age, I was just always drawn to a sort of poeticness in actors like Meryl Streep and Al Pacino. so I started out with children's theater, and then I ventured into my teen years. I started just going out myself, taking myself out on auditions to, while I was in high school, I was going out on auditions to plays in the area. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I remember when I got Anne Frank, that was a big turning point for me. Another intense and emotional role, but I really dived into the story of Anne Frank, and I remember going to museums and reading books and her diary and looking at photos and feeling very close to that person. And I think that's what Meryl Streep was about too. You know, she, is an actress who is method, but also embodies a character. And so I started doing that at a very young age. And then I continued to stay after I went to Carnegie Mellon there in Pittsburgh.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. I went to the drama program, the conservatory 4-year drama program there. And after that, I ended up staying in the theater circuit, doing regional theater. And I worked with some of the best directors in the United States. I worked with Doug Hughes, who was the direct out when it was on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
I worked with Anne Bogart, who really inspired me with her viewpoints that, because I ended up doing, after I worked the circuit all around the United States, different regional theaters, I started to do my own work in Seattle, and I became more in the direction, and I started to direct a little bit too, and this is really in my late 20s. I really was inspired by Anne Bogart's viewpoints, so that I began to approach my work in a more abstract, avant-garde way. And I've always done that, which is what I do with Conversations in LA as well. So, my background is the theater, and I had a theater in upstate New York before I moved here 3 years ago. And so what I decided to do, because my theater in upstate New York moved from theater spaces into a movie theater, I started to move, and really for the first time, in my late 40s, being interested in theater and TV and film, and moving my work there. So what I started to do was I started to film my own plays and the plays of other people, and then I decided, this is it. I got to move to Los Angeles. I need to be doing television and episodic work, but I wanted to merge theater onto film to create these one-shot takes, which is what Conversations in LA, my 5-time daytime Emmy-nominated series, is.
Interesting. And I want to learn more and more about that, Anne-Marie. So you basically, what I've seen is that the best actors out there start in the theater, because when you are in the theater, your ability to monitor and adjust, your ability to take one take and get something is far different than other actors, isn't it? Because you guys really have to be prepared on the theater, because if you mess up, everyone is watching. Compared to a television take, there's 20 takes, 100 takes sometimes.
Right. It's very interesting, the process. Certainly, we, obviously, for the theater, you have 2-3 weeks of rehearsing, and then you're in front of an audience, and you get used to, you just go no matter what. Once the audience is there, the curtain rises, you go. And you learn to work with whatever happens. And I feel like the style of this one-shot episodes certainly lends itself, if I'm working with theater actors, and many of the actors I work with on this series have that theater background. I have, I think, nine people from Carnegie Mellon who are in this.
Really? Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
We have to bring out, I used to teach at St. Agnes School, where we had a program with Carnegie Mellon Theater coming in to work with the kids. So probably some
wonderful.
of those, who knows if they were there when I was teaching there, which, again, it's still 8 or 9 years ago, but the program, it's very interesting to see how amazing that Carnegie Mellon program is. Just have to tell you that they really do. And you got to be bright, too. Anne-Marie is bright.
Yes.
Trust me. It's Carnegie Mellon. Yes, for sure.
Well, I think of, the reason I call Immediate Vision, my film production company, Immediate Vision Productions, is because it's about the vision. It's about what the uniqueness. Nobody is doing what I'm doing, these one-shot episodes.
Yes.
And, the intro and the outro, they're montages, and they're always different, and they're cut with edits, usually 2 minutes on the front end and 2 minutes on the back end. But our episodes can go up to 20 minutes straight on, and I do like working with theater actors, but I don't mind working with straight-up TV and film actors, too. It's a challenge for them, but I think the ones that come on board, sometimes they're used to just 3 pages and then it goes, okay, cut. But ours, it's usually 12 pages and they have to sustain it. And, we do a lot of takes. I do a lot of rehearsals. So it feels like a theater process for these actors. It feels like they're in a play. And it's funny being out here. A lot of people will say to me, okay, wait, you can't have all these rehearsals. You can't. This is not what we do. And I'm like, well, look, Terrence Malick has his style as a director. Every director has their own style and own method.
Yeah.
And my style and method is, look, these are one shots. I think somebody was just telling me the other day, Stanley Kubrick does something like, 100 takes. And I can't even imagine that in one day. But for me, it is basically like 100 takes, but I spread it out over two weeks or so.
That's amazing. And again,
it is intense, very intense.
Anne-Marie, absolutely. We're talking to Anne-Marie Cummings of Conversations in L.A. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the supporting cast you have and then your character in the story. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my character is the protagonist, Michelle Maccabee. She's an older woman. She's menopausal. She's very moody. She's going through a transition in her life. She's deciding that she's not happy with her job. This is season 1, not happy with her job at Amazon for a decade that she's been doing that.
Okay.
And she meets this young Hispanic man. She's also lost her dog. And she and this, so, a lot of people that are in their 40s are going through a transition in their life.
Yes.
The midlife crisis is what we call it.
Yes.
So she meets this young Hispanic guy, and they have what is, the way I've written it, is a soul connection. It's not the typical older woman, younger man that's portrayed in TV and film or even theater, where it's based on some sort of just a physical sexual connection. It's really a deep connection. Two people who meet and inspire each other and help each other. And, we ask ourselves many times, can something like this really work? Well, I think it's individual, and age is not what I think makes a relationship. If you really, at least the story I'm telling is we see the struggle of these two people, and this continues through seasons 1 and 2, and all the people they meet along the way. And we see the people Michelle meets, we see the people that Gus meets, and the journey that they're taking as a couple. So in season 1, I don't want to give out anything away, but, it is about their journey. Yeah. And, this is a really exciting year. We have Justin Kirk from Weeds and Willie Garson from Sex and the City that are coming on board. In season 2, we had Rebecca Metz, who also went to Carnegie from Better Things and Shameless. So, it's really been exciting. The people in each season, they come and go, but the main people, and sometimes they're recurring, but the main people are Gus and Michelle. Maybe their couples therapist stays the same, things like that. But, it's a very important time for us. I think that if you decide, like I am, I'm I sold my house in upstate New York. I decided to take a big risk and invest those funds into this project and make it happen so that we can move to a major platform like HBO or Netflix. And this year we have Mogul Studios, our producing partner, on board. So that's exciting too.
How can you get to that next level? That's a great point to make. What your strategy is next to try to get to one of those places, either HBO or Netflix.
Well, it's been, and people have asked me this many times, and I think that it's individual. It's every show has its own path. And the last thing in the world I thought when I began this project, which was really just so I was just writing scenes, and it turned into, I realized, oh my God, I have a series. I should just go for it. It was the fact that we got the first year in 2017 that we got, I received a Daytime Emmy nomination for Outstanding Actress, and then my co-star for Outstanding Lead Actor, and then Vanita for supporting, Vanita Harbor. That inspired us, and we said, wait a minute, we got to keep going. So that pushed us to take it from just our website, conversationsinla.com, to let's put it up on iTunes and Amazon. Now, let's just do a second season. So we've taken big risks, and I think that for anyone out there who is working on a series or a show, sometimes you just do the pilot and try and sell that way. But we're going all the way. So now we have received 2 more Daytime Emmy nominations, one for writing for myself and Mikey Winfield, the guest actor. And now we're like, oh my God, now we're even more inspired. So this is when we, by the end of season 2, I decided, okay, I've got to reach out to get some partners involved. And our producing partner is Mogul Studios. And they are a Fortune 100 company run by the CEO is Tiffany Pham. And this is their first project under the name Mogul Studios. So this is a really, really exciting time because now with their help and support, we believe we can take it to that next level. It takes time.
Absolutely.
I mean,
you have the passion, Marie, and that's the thing. And with these nominations leads to credibility, leads to people, and then someone's going to pick you up. There's so many other streaming services out there now. You never know where you take it, that you won't even need to have to go to those platforms. But having those goals in mind for your show and continuing to grow it and invest in it is the best possible situation. And when it's time, it will happen. That's my take.
Right. No, and I think that, it's one of these things when we watch TV shows that are out there, yes, I think some get picked up right from a pilot, but some have a long life that we don't even know about, maybe for a few years before. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that maybe Mad Men and even Breaking Bad, they had it took several years before those shows actually made it. There are a lot of things about this that are unique. I also really wanted to give one of the leads to have him be a Hispanic. And my co-star being a Hispanic, we don't necessarily recognize in the entertainment world. I don't think we give enough to the Hispanic community, but here in LA, I think this is predominantly a Hispanic community. So it's exciting to see that as well. I mean, Gustavo Velasquez is an unknown, and this is his first big project, but he is an amazing talent, and he kind of think of him like a young Benjamin Bratt, but he's just incredible, and sometimes unknowns make history. So I'm excited about the direction of this. I hope this is also helping anyone out there who is working on a show. It's about persistence. It's about perseverance. It's
Absolutely. It seems like that's what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you, especially Carnegie Mellon.
Thank you.
So we have to stay in touch. We got to stay connected
Absolutely.
in different things, and I want to, because here's the thing. I started out my career at Carnegie Mellon with the radio show. I didn't go to Carnegie Mellon. I started on one station. I'm still on it, WRCT, for an education show, and I've syndicated 120-plus stations, have television, have all these pickups and huge reach. So it's really amazing, to think about our connection with Carnegie